Hey, this is a trendy socialite. I hope all is well with you. Today's video is something that I have been meaning to do for quite some time now, but a situation that I was in today brought it back to my immediate memory, and I thought, what better time than the present time to do this. If you refer back to a video that I recorded back during the summer about returning the art of a lady, I talked about briefly sitting and how to sit like a lady. Well, I wanted to come back and actually show you some examples of how to sit and ways to sit, so that when you're encountering these situations that you'll know exactly what to do and you won't fumble and look awkward or feel awkward. And the situation that brought it to my attention was the fact that I attended a funeral today, and I was seated on the front row with the family. I wasn't a member of the family. It was my best friend's grandmother, so I was seated with her and her daughter, and I was very, very conscious of how I was sitting. And luckily, I have been taught and I have practiced how to sit, but I know that there are so many young women and even women my age and older that have never really been taught how to sit, and they feel awkward when they're in those situations, and they sort of look awkward to people, especially to those of us that do know how to sit properly. So I wanted to give you some examples of how to sit, so that you can practice those in your spare time. I do encourage that to practice them, say for instance while you're seated at dinner, at a restaurant or at a table, when you're not really being seen. No one can see what your legs look like underneath the table. If you practice it during those times, then when you're actually in a situation where you have to sit that way, it's easier for you to do so. And that's what I do. A lot of times when I'm seated at a table, whether it's at work, in a meeting, or at a restaurant, I will sit a certain way just to practice that, because one thing that I noticed today was by the end of the funeral, my inner thighs were kind of sore from trying to keep my legs together and sit properly and all that kind of stuff. So, and especially for those of us that have a little bit more legs, it is a little bit more cumbersome, if you will, for us to sit properly. We have to sort of will our legs together, or use our muscles to keep our legs together. So I wanted to give you some stances or some postures in which to sit in different situations properly, especially if you're up on a pulpit or a platform, a raised platform, a dais, or if you're seated in the front row. Even if you're not seated in the front row somewhere, you just still need to practice proper sitting when you're in public especially. So stay tuned. You probably won't see my face because I need to show you all the way down to my legs, but I will still talk on this video to show you sort of how to sit. Alright, stay tuned. The first thing that I recommend is to not sit like this. This is very what they consider boxy. It's a little unapproachable, and it is considered slightly mannish. If this is comfortable for you, I would suggest that maybe you consider sliding one of your feet forward just a little bit, like so. And that may be easier for you. And also regarding your hands, your handsies, it is considered, I guess, more relaxed and approachable if your palms are facing up. So if you sit like this, a lot of us, and even I sit like this a lot of times, which is okay. That's proper as well. But this is considered like with your palms facing up and, one hand in the other, a little bit more relaxed. So you can consider that if you're wanting to look a little bit more casual. Some people, they take their hands and they put them back toward their hip area. That is okay as well. That's a little bit more of a formal pose, but it's okay if that's comfortable for you as well. If you're going to sit straight on like this, I do suggest that you slide one foot forward. It also makes it easier to sort of keep your legs together rather than this. This is a little bit harder for me to keep my legs together. This is a little bit easier because I don't know why, it's just like my legs just naturally fall together when I do that. The easiest way for you to sit that is both comfortable and ladylike is for you to lean your legs to one side and cross your ankles. That is one of the easiest ways to sit, and I do this quite a bit. It is comfortable. I can sit like this, you know, for hours if I had to. I would hope that I wouldn't, but if I had to, I could sit like this for hours and I would be okay. And what this does is that it actually, because your legs are leaning, like this right leg or the leg that's on top, depending on which way you do it, is sort of pushing down, like gravity is making the legs stick together, and so it's not as hard for you to keep your legs closed in that regard. And you see, I can either put my hands one on top of the other like that. I can sit them up like this. I can cup them together if I want to. I can sit like this. I can put them back toward my hips if I want to. The other thing that makes this easier is to cross your ankles. Hopefully you can see that. And crossing your ankles really helps a lot too as well. And that's something that you can do in just about any pose. Even when you're seated straight up like this, you can cross your ankles. Sometimes, depending on the shoes you have on, it's a little bit harder to cross your ankles. But in these particular shoes, it's relatively easy for me to cross my ankles. And that is another way that you can sit. But in terms of comfort, I prefer to sit like this. And this is usually the way I sit. It is important when you're seated, especially up on a raised platform or pulpit or something like that, that you not cross your legs. Do not, under any circumstances, cross your legs, because when you do, people can possibly see up your skirt, and it's just not the most ladylike thing to do when you're sitting up on a raised platform or a pulpit. So when you're doing something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you cross your ankles. And also, if you notice that I'm shifting my weight upward and I'm sitting up when I'm doing this, that also provides comfort, and it doesn't create any stress on my lower back when I'm seated right. If I'm slouched down in my seat, you see, like, your legs kind of gape open. It's easier for you to maintain it if your posture is erect. You're seated up in the seat, and that will allow for you to sit this way for a while in comfort, and your body doesn't feel like stressed and muscles start hurting and becoming fatigued and that sort of thing. Those are really the two main ways to do that. If you're in a situation where you want to cross your legs, I've gained some weight, so it's harder and sort of cross them like this. If you have skinnier legs than I do, it's easier for you to do it. But you can lean your legs and cross them too, and that's a lot less unseemly than just straight crossing your legs like that. Okay. I'm a fan of crossing my legs. I think that's uber sexy. But there are certain situations where it is really not warranted. And I actually, the older I get, the more I sit like this, simply because I never know where I'm going to be. And out of habit, if I've always crossed my legs, I'm more likely to cross my legs. But if I, out of habit, always cross my ankles, I'm more likely to cross my ankles. If you're seated on a front row, you do not, it is considered more of a manly posture for you to cross your ankles out in front of you like this. Now I did it today because my legs were so tired toward the end of the funeral. Like, I did like this, and I kind of shook my leg, and I did it during like a song, so I was kind of doing it to the beat of the song, kind of just give my legs a break, and then I went back to that. So, and this is also this is an easy pose in terms of crossing your ankles. If your one foot is flat on the floor and the other foot is just behind the other ankle, that's pretty comfortable. And especially if you have something to sort of kind of rest all of that on, it's easy to keep this pose as well. I do recommend, I don't know if you can tell, but sometimes you don't know what sort of seat you're going to be in, and some seats, when you sit down in them, like, you either sink or it's just sort of uncomfortable, especially if you're doing something like an interview. And I would recommend, this situation happened with my mom earlier this year. She went to an awards show and she saw different people being interviewed in this little area, and she was going to be next, and she leaned over to me. She was like, gosh, I don't want to sink down in that seat. Because people were having like a hard time getting up. That's how awkward that seat was. And it was just an old cushioned chair is what it boiled down to. And so I said to her, sit toward the edge of the seat and cross your ankles, and then it will be easier for you to sit down. So if you're ever in that sort of situation, you don't sit all the way back where your back is against the seat back. You sit sort of toward the edge of the seat. I don't know if you can tell. And then you can cross your ankles at this point. And hopefully the seat has some armrests, and you can sort of lean on the armrest. And once again, however you want to situate your hands, like that. And then you're able to make sure that your posture is erect. If you're going to do this particular stance, you need to make sure your back is as straight as possible, because this right here, that's not cute. That's not sexy. That's not ladylike at all. This is better. So you want to make sure that you sit. You want to lift them up. So sit like this, and hopefully if you have to sit this way, hopefully it won't be for a long period of time, like my mom did it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, so it wasn't bad. But this is a good way to sit if the seat is awkward and uncomfortable and you really can't get comfortable and figure out a way to sit that's proper. I suggest that you don't just sit like this in a skirt, that you sit like this in pants, in whatever jeans, whatever you're wearing at a particular time. I would suggest sitting like this, because once again, as it becomes habit to you, when you're in a situation where you actually need to do this, you'll be able to do it because it'll be second nature to you. I remember hearing someone on television one time talking about how her mother made her like come in and practice sitting like this for, maybe 20 minutes at a time, and then another time it was 30 minutes. Like, she got up to an hour to an hour and a half of being able to sit like this, and she kept asking her mom, why are you making me do this? She says, I'm preparing you for situations in your future. And little did she know that she was going to be propelled into an arena of great national and international prominence, where she would need those skills. So I'm wanting to pass those particular skills on to you, my YouTube family, because I really do feel like this is a lost art that needs to be recaptured and passed on to our younger ladies, because the way we carry ourselves oftentimes determines how we're approached and who we're approached by. If they see you seated in less than a ladylike way, they're going to possibly think that you're less than a lady, and we don't want any sort of misinterpretation or mixed signals regarding that. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any resources, please feel free to leave them below. As always, I love you all, and be blessed. Take care. Bye-bye.